Okay, welcome everyone to If We Build It, Will They Come? A behind the scenes look at the Tech Interactive. I'm Marika on the media and community team here, and we are thrilled to bring you an inside look at some of your favorite exhibitions and how they were designed, and really dive deep into why your voices are so important, why our members and our community are really the special sauce to making sure that our experiences are so engaging and fun. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Our program is being recorded, and we would like to thank the Tech Interactive supporters, especially our members. You bring such meaning to the work that we do, and it's always so nice to hear when you experience something at the Tech that has affected your love of STEM learning and empowered your inner engineer. Please never stop sharing your pictures and stories with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We want to make sure you know about the Tech Interactive at home as well, and the Tech Interactive in Casa. We're working really hard to bring you free, fun STEM learning in English and Spanish with materials you'll find around your home. We are still finding new ways to inspire the innovator in everyone, and we hope you'll join us on that journey. Be sure to also look out for our member newsletter to make sure you get early access to those activities. We're going to get started with our program, and we will have some time for questions and answers at the end. So please put any questions you might have in the chat. We're also going to drop a link to the Tech Interactive at home there. As many of you know, the Tech Interactive is home to 132,000 square feet of fun and over 70 interactive exhibits. So how does one of our amazing galleries go from an empty space to something that invites you to learn, play, and grow? Well, a lot of research, hard work, of course, determination, but like I said, the real special sauce is you. You really inspire us. Your input is how our curator and exhibit developer, Michelle Maranowski, has designed some of the Tech's most popular spaces: Cyber Detective, Innovation in Healthcare, and our upcoming very ambitious endeavor to cure climate change apathy, Solve for Earth. She's one of the most curious and thoughtful people I've ever met, and I feel lucky to call her a colleague and a friend. Please welcome Michelle Maranowski.
Thank you so much, Marika, for that wonderful introduction. I am super looking forward to having a great conversation with you and with our audience about how to build exhibitions. So I'm going to start with my slide deck. Great, thank you. So this is essentially an overview of how exhibition development happens at the Tech. So next slide, please. Okay, so who are we? Who is the Tech Interactive? The Tech Interactive is San Jose's Science and Technology Learning Center. We are your science and technology learning center. Our mission is to inspire the innovator in everyone, and that everyone is super important, something that Marika alluded to. Our vision is to develop problem solvers locally, nationally, and globally. So a huge vision for us. And at the Tech, we truly believe and espouse design challenge learning. Design challenge learning is essentially, it's a dynamic way for learners to become creative problem solvers. Next slide, please. Okay, so who am I? I am a curator and exhibit developer at the Tech Interactive. I've been at the Tech since April 2013, so just a smidgen over 7 years. My background is in electrical engineering, so I came out to Silicon Valley as an electrical engineer. I worked as a process development engineer and a product development engineer as well. And my responsibilities at the Tech include a variety of things. First of all, it's to kind of look at an exhibition topic and decide what things within that topic we should highlight in our exhibition. It includes developing the mission and the vision and the goals for that exhibition, sharing that with the rest of the exhibition team, the development team. It includes doing the research, contact experts, developing our advisory board, and I also help our fundraising development team talk to donors. And when we build things, doing a little bit of fundraising, giving us the financial means to build that exhibition. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is the meat of the exhibition development. So where do I start? how do I start to build an exhibition from scratch? And it's from that blank sheet. So I have to move from that blank sheet that was up to, I have to get to here. So from nothing to an exhibition that's fun and engaging and that people come to. So that's a really interesting process. This is these are a few pictures of our Cyber Detectives exhibition, one of my favorite exhibitions at the Tech. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do I get started? When I'm at that blank sheet, I think that this image personifies, it really describes where I'm at that blank sheet. It's not pure full-on panic, it's kind of panic and excitement at the same time. It's kind of this dual personality thing. I like to think of, because when you're in that, it's a big topic, you have to put your boundaries in place. So that's always a little scary, but it's a lot of fun because putting together an exhibition is like a puzzle and putting together all those puzzle pieces. So I love puzzles and I kind of love this interesting kind of, what could it be? It could be anything phase. Next slide, please. Okay, and I do want to mention that it's not just this blank sheet and it's not just me being full on panic mode. I do have conditions. So first of all, the exhibition must be relevant. It's something that our community is interested in and wants to learn. So relevancy. The next thing, it has to be engaging. It can't be boring. The topic, I have to talk about sometimes things like cybersecurity in a fun way people want to see it. Next is, it has to be content rich, right? I don't want to just be surface level. I want people to get a lot out of the things that they're seeing in an exhibition. It has to be accurate. People come to museums to get information that is accurate. In fact, places like the Interactive are well-known authorities. So we have to be accurate in what we share. It has to be something that people of a wide range can enjoy, right? It can't just all be adults. It has to be something that kids enjoy, something that teens can get a lot out of, adults, all ages. And I do believe one more thing, I think. Oh, two more things. There's always a budget in place. So there's that, I can't just, I'm never ever limitless. So that's a good thing. There's a budget involved. So that puts a lot of caps on certain things. And then finally, most of all, it has to be fun. You can pull out things in any topic that illustrate that topic, but people can get a lot out of and have a lot of fun with. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do I start? Besides, to get out of that kind of like panicky mode, I don't stay there. I start with research. Research is, I have to figure out like, what are the boundaries? What are the topics that people are interested in? And it's not always straightforward. Sometimes you can get into a rabbit hole and go down a path too far, and you kind of have to pull yourself out of that. You have to be willing to cut things out and say, okay, that's not important, this is important. And it can also be somewhat uncertain. You have to have a little bit of confidence that, okay, the topic that I'm covering, or these things, yeah, this belongs, or this doesn't belong. So that can be a little bit a phase of uncertainty. And to kind of, to move forward from that, I have to look at sources. So who do I look to for more information? Content experts. I am super good at making cold calls. This is something that you have to become an expert at. You do have to develop your own expertise so you can talk to those people though. I attend conferences, I go to webinars and ask questions, I read journals and books, I do go online. One of the best relationships I made was with the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories through Twitter. So that was great. And I do attend meetups too. So next slide, please. Okay, so I'm doing research, I'm getting to meet people, and this all starts to formulate in an idea board. And I put together a board, I put ideas on there that I find inspirational, that add questions to my own mind, because if I have a question, everyone else has a question. So I put those kind of like pictures and images, things that give me the right look and feel. Things from previous exhibitions, you know, science museums, art museums. And what's really fun is that as you start to pin things around on your idea board, you can move things and put things together, and you can start to see patterns emerge. And once those patterns emerge, your job is one step easier, because this is something that where there are a lot of questions that you can build something on. Next slide, please. Okay, so you've done your research, you have your content experts in place, you have your advisory board in place, you've got your ideas. Now is when you start to put together an exhibition framework, those big chunks that you have to have in your exhibition. And I want to say that once you put this exhibition framework in place, it is not set in stone at all. It can change. So this one framework that is up on screen right now is the framework for our next exhibition called Solve for Earth. And already you can see this I put together a couple of years ago. It was called Technology in the Environment. But as we learned more, as you start to think about budget and space and relevancy, the framework is the same, but some of those things that you see in those big circles are gone. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is my absolute favorite part of exhibition development, prototyping. And this is, prototyping is essentially this very focused and iterative testing process with community, right? When we build exhibitions, we want to make sure that, and exhibits, we want to make sure that we understand what our community is looking for, how they're interacting with parts and pieces. Prototyping is super important. We use it to figure out if the ideas that we're thinking about are correct. We use it to determine the look and feel of something, how big something should be. So in this one, this young lady is playing around with some buildings and a cardboard board, which you'll see what this ended up being. So I think this is great. And what I love about this is that we get our community to come in and you know, share what they think about something. So it's like many brains make an exhibit much better.
So Michelle, did you laser cut these pieces on the cardboard, like the Tech Interactive did?
So I didn't laser cut them, but Danny Haig did, who's on our exhibit teams. Yeah, and actually I do want to say that I am not just the exhibits team. We can talk about that a little bit later. There's a whole team of people that come together, disparate like skills that all match up together. So we can talk about that too. Okay, next slide. So this is another one of my favorite prototypes, and prototypes are not supposed to be, they're supposed to be somewhat throwaway, because you learn something and you move to the next iteration, you learn it and you move on. But I loved this one. This is an 8-foot by 8-foot map of the Bay Area, San Jose, all the way up to, I think it actually went down from Gilroy up to Palo Alto. But it's an 8-foot by 8-foot map, and that we brought out at several of our member events. And I was super curious about how our visitors would use this map to tell their own stories about how they live sustainably, and any questions that they had about climate change, and what they wanted to see in their community. And this was like an incredibly fun thing, because I had groups of people talking to each other, like, oh, I need a bike path here, or this amazing thing happened in this part of the neighborhood. This one also ended up as an exhibit in Solve for Earth. So next slide, please. Okay, so like I said, I'm not supposed to have favorite prototypes, but this one is great too. And the team that was working on this one, in this picture, you can see what they're experimenting with. What they're experimenting with is instruction. So the idea behind this prototype is that we wanted people to put windows on this house, and they put windows, and then they would push a button and get essentially what is the energy efficiency, energy consumption of the house with all these windows. So It was a relatively complicated exhibit idea, but it was awesome. But we had to make sure that the instructions were right and that the parts and pieces were placed in the right way so that the barrier to interactivity was would be low and it wouldn't be confusing. Okay, so next slide, please. All right, so we talked about research. We talked about developing an advisory board and idea boards, talked about prototyping. Now I just wanted to show a couple of examples about how all of this work, where it ends up. So I've got two really great examples. So this one is a rendering of an exhibit that we will be including in our next exhibition called Solve for Earth. It's called Connections Wall, and it's this really interesting and immersive interactive wall that's just a lot of fun, but very content rich. Like, you don't see that, but you get it when you start experimenting with it. It's 60 feet wide, 16 feet high. It's really a lot of fun. And I've played around with some of the prototypes of this and it's been incredible. So next slide, another example. This is a rendering of an exhibit that's also going into Solve for Earth called Sustainable Cities. And a couple of slides earlier, you saw the young lady with the houses and that laser cut cardboard playing board. So that was kind of the beginning. And Danny did a lot of iterations with that. And we've ended up with this incredible interactive exhibit where you learn how you kind of play around with building cities and looking at the some interesting sustainability factors. So that is another, yeah, okay, so great. So now at this, at this point we have like designed exhibits, we have, all of this research, and we now put together, like going back to that framework, we had like these areas of groupings of exhibits. So this is a bubble diagram that shows that grouping of exhibits. And what this does for us is it helps us to think about what a visitor's journey will be through the exhibit, through that space. If I stop at this exhibit, what could be the outcomes of that? And you remember I talked about goals. So with this bubble diagram, we kind of figure out, with the visitor's journey, are they getting to, are the goals that we put in place, are those being satisfied? Next slide, please. Okay, so this is now the exhibition floor plan. So this is a very detailed description of, I've got like over 20 exhibits and where those exhibits are going to lie in that space. So this is kind of the final part of the development process. You have your exhibits and you have your floor plan. So this is the final slide. So this is just a quick overview of what exhibition development is at the Tech. I could speak for another hour about this. I won't. But I just wanted to say a few final thoughts. Number one, the Tech Interactive impacts lives. And I see that every time I go out onto the floor and I find a young person at an exhibit that I have built. It's the most amazing feeling that a little idea, a kernel of an idea that I had maybe a year and a half ago has now become an exhibit. And I know that the Tech Interactive impacts lives. The mission of the Tech is to inspire the innovator in everyone being the operative word in that sentence. Our vision is to develop problem solvers locally, nationally, and globally. My role as a curator and exhibit developer here is I am blessed and honored to be part of this effort at the Tech Interactive. So that's a quick description of exhibition development at the Tech.
Thank you, Michelle, I know you work for years sometimes developing our exhibitions. And so thank you for summarizing that so quickly for us, and your passion really comes through. I'm going to start with a question, and we are in our question and answer section of the program. So feel free to drop a question in the chat if you have anything you'd like to ask Michelle. But I'm going to start with a question that actually someone in the chat brought up already. Talk to us a little bit about your career. You've been at the Tech for 7 years. This is your first Science Center Museum job, but I'm sure it's a very interesting career path. I know we may have folks who are interested in working at a Science Center someday, but that's not really what you set out to do in your career.
No, I'm a trained electrical engineer. I'm trained in semiconductor physics. I came out to the Bay Area to work at a company as a process development engineer. Building, manufacturing light emitting diodes. I've worked on diodes. I've worked on figuring out like quality control for DNA microarrays. And then but the one thing that kind of is a common amongst both of those jobs, it's that I learned how to, and as an engineer, learned how to ask questions, right? That's the most important part. It's asking a well-formed question and then figuring out, how do I find the answer to that question? So, you know, you might think that, oh, you need to be trained as a museum staff member, but what you really need to have is that ability to ask questions and then just doggedly go out and find the answer to that. Yeah. And you have to learn how, that's one thing I learned in Silicon Valley is like learning to work on teams, right?
Mm-hmm. I cannot. Well, that was going to be my next question. Yeah. You come up with, you do all this research, you have all these ideas, not everything can come to fruition. How do you and a team work together to make it happen?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Because my job is to come up with the topic and what are the things that we need, kind of the general idea of like, okay, if we're going to be looking at global climate, creating a global climate lab, what are the things that need to go in there? But I cannot do this all by myself at all. On the exhibits team, I'm a part of an exhibits team. We have interactive exhibit developers, we have content developers, we have software developers. We have engineers that build everything electrical, every kind of electronic that you can imagine in the museum. Like there's a person that has designed and built that on the team that I'm on. So all of these people come together, and more, as I said before, more brains make something better, right? I can't know everything. I can't see everything, right? And so I rely on an exhibit development team to make ideas that I have better. Mm-hmm. And I love being on the exhibits team. We share articles, we share ideas with each other. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, I think another important input point to the process is also our community. And you showed a few really great examples. I remember watching at member parties, folks working on those maps and just loving that piece that's, coming to be a part of Solve for Earth. Talk a little bit about, is there a time a community member gave you some input that really changed how something was designed?
That happens all the time. But the thing that pops up in my mind right away is I'm including food security in our Solve for Earth exhibition. And I had come up with this, I thought, wonderful idea where I would give people just a plate and play food and ask them to build a meal. And then I would like tell them what the impact of their meal was. And two things that came out of that is that that asking of that question about the impact, what is it you want to know the impact of the meal that you put together, was incredibly shame-inducing.
I know it would be for me right now.
If someone wants to.
Why are you eating what you're eating, Michelle?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was kind of how that came off, and people would walk up to me, and I would, what this is the impact, and they would just kind of immediately get turned off. The other thing that came out of that is that a lot of kids, when they make their meals out of 2 cupcakes and like ice cream. And so, you know, we weren't getting the right kind of impact or the kind of information. Like, we have all this great information, and I think that the physical making the meal didn't impart it in the right way. Yeah. So that's an example of where I thought I came up with a brilliant idea, and then someone on the team came up with something much better.
I love that you've talked so much about Solve for Earth, which is an upcoming exhibit, but you've also designed some of our visitors' favorite exhibits, Cyber Detectives, Innovations in Healthcare. I love innovations in healthcare, and I don't think it always gets the glamour that our other exhibitions do, because it highlights the engineering design process, and also that you can have an impact and not necessarily be a scientist or an engineer, and really like a classically trained, I suppose, scientist or engineer. So can you talk a little bit about what was one of your favorite stories that you chose to highlight in that exhibition that really shows that anyone can make a difference?
Sure. This is a great story. And it actually highlights one of my favorite things about my job, this ability, I get to talk to all kinds of people. It's my favorite thing. Like to ask people questions and to get answers to help me figure out, you know, stuff myself. So I had the opportunity to talk to a couple of engineers that came out of Stanford that had developed this incredible product called the Embrace Warmer. I think we may have a slide for that. Yeah. And essentially what the problem statement that these guys were trying to solve is that when babies are underweight, they need warmth so that their organs can develop. And actually a baby can be harmed later on if they don't have the fat reserves and that warmth to develop. And so these guys figured out a way to create a warmer that was like easy to clean. It was, you know, mobile. It was easy to use materials. But what was really highlighted to me was that iterative design process. And you can see it in this slide. So to the left is their first prototype, and it's just a zippered up bag. And they took that, they experimented with it. It didn't, you know, they learned something out of that, and then they applied it, you know, to their next prototype. And you can see that happening. Like, you can see the similarities between that first warmer and the last one, right? And you can see all, like the third one over the red one, that clear window. Mm-hmm. That was something that came up from prototyping, and you can see that in the last prototype. It's just, I love highlighting that kind of excitement and no intuitive, like engineering, prototyping, creative problem solving in our exhibits. Because I think that when you're confronted with, and you can see something like this, it triggers in yourself like, oh, I could do this, because the guys who came up with this were not like physicians that were experts in like keeping babies alive. They just found this problem that they wanted to solve. And it was different types of people that came together to solve this problem. So they
were students, like it was a student idea at first.
Yeah, it was a student idea. I think they were grad students, but they were still students at Stanford. Yeah.
We're going to get to audience questions. We've got a lot piling up, which is great, pretty quickly here. What is the funniest thing that's ever happened to you at the tech?
Okay.
Because of an exhibit that you've designed.
Oh, okay, because of the exhibit. Not like the goofy things that happen at work. The funniest thing happened when I was trying to get into the Millennium Falcon exhibit when we had the Star Wars thing, but that's a different story. I think, so when I was developing cybersecurity, I had the opportunity to talk to some really incredible, like people who are on the forefront of keeping us safe online. I don't want to mention who they are, but they value their privacy, but they really helped me develop this idea, and they connected me to a lot of experts. One of the people that I spoke to actually connected me up with the FBI. And I had an opportunity to interview some FBI agents. And I remember that day very clearly because they came to the tech. our offices are locked. And so they they came to the front and they gave me a call and they said, okay, we're here for our meeting and, we're ready to go whenever you are. We're waiting outside for you. Let us in. And so in the span of time that it took for me to walk to my desk to the front door, they had magically somehow, I don't know, because I didn't see anyone there, they had magically melted through those front doors somehow. And I met them in the hallway and are you Michelle Maranowski? Yes, I'm Michelle. And they just looked at each other and looked at me and said, you really have bad security here. So like,
well, the FBI is a very high standard for the record.
Yeah, exactly. And somehow they were able to foil. I mean, we have good security, but they were somehow able to foil that. And the really exciting thing is that that day when I told my boys, when I was picking them up from school, hey guys, guess what happened? I met the FBI today. They're helping me develop cyber detectives at the tech. I instantly became the coolest mom on earth. And so that was great. That was the best thing, one of the better things that happened to me.
I love that they gave you some street cred with your
exactly. Awesome. And the FBI also a couple of agents showed up to the opening and my son was super excited that they were there. And again, they just melted. I was looking around for the agents. They weren't there. I leaned over to say to my son, I'm sorry, they're not here, kid. And then all of a sudden they just arrived. I have not been able to figure out how they do that.
We have a lot of questions from the audience, so I want to get to those quickly. Okay. But one last thing, so this isn't completely just about the Tech Interactive. What are museums that you look to that you find really interesting? Like, what's an experience you've had in a museum that you've really enjoyed outside of ours?
So I have to say that I am a museum junkie. I love museums. Whenever I'm on vacation, I make a point to check out where all of the museums are and visit, even briefly. I was on a trip to Yellowstone with my family and driving from Utah and into Idaho. And we stopped at this really small town called Pocatello. And in that town, they had the most incredible museum called the Museum of Clean. And I never thought about highlighting how to clean things as a whole museum and as a museum. And it was in a LEED certified building. It was beautiful and immaculate and perfect. I walked in, I had the best time. They had every single vacuum cleaner you could ever imagine. They had videos on how to clean your toilet efficiently, how to clean your windows with squeegee them really quickly. And the founder of the museum was there, and what was super clear to in talking to him is about how passionate and excited he was about the content that he was sharing there. And I think when that comes through, I mean, that's an incredible experience when you can tell the kind of care and excitement that that people have in their museums. I mean, I also love the Cooper Hewitt. I think you get some really amazing things coming that you can see from there as well. But the Museum of Clean was an incredible experience.
That reminds me of one of my first dates with my husband. We went to the Redwoods, and in Felton, there's a Bigfoot museum, and we just stopped randomly. It's one room just packed with stuff and pop culture references and lots of books and different little artifacts. And but the owner was there, and he was just so passionate about it. And he'll sit and talk to you forever about Bigfoot and Bigfoot sightings and the history of Bigfoot sightings. And I agree with you. It's definitely about the passion, and your passion comes through when you're talking about building exhibitions and especially the content. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. We're going to get to audience Q&A now. One of the first ones was, what is the first exhibition you made, and how long does it take to build an exhibition?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I arrived at the tech, I did the content development around social robots. So when I arrived, the social robots exhibit had been pretty much designed, but the information to make it come alive was not there yet. And so that's the first exhibition that I worked on at the tech. Ton of fun. That one was a hard exhibition because we had received, the team kind of had received the directive from our executive director and CEO at the time. His intent was to refurbish the entire museum as quickly as possible. So we had to create that particular exhibition, which was very complicated, very complex, in like 9 months. And so that was really rough to do. When you have a little bit more time, you can do a little bit more burn-in and more kind of, you know, you can refine some of your electronics designs a little bit more. But I mean, for the amount of time that we were given, that is an incredible exhibition. And when we opened it, it was the first of its kind in the world where you could come into a museum and build a robot from parts and pieces. Incredible. Yeah.
Well, I know I was surprised when this is actually my first job in the Science Center museum realm as well. And I was surprised. We've completely redone the entire Tech Interactive in the past 5 years, which is a very high speed and high rate of getting new content, but it's allowed us to explore, you know, new technologies and really come up with things that are relevant to our community, which I think is great. And has, you know, you've led a lot of that, which is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say that for social robots, it was 9 months, but on average, it's probably around 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Mainly because for the conditions that those boundaries that I gave earlier about, you know, relevancy, accuracy, right? It takes time testing everything out. We don't ever, you know, put stuff out, or we don't try not to put stuff out that's going to break, right? And that people can't get enough out of. So it takes us a lot of time to make sure that we do that job well. And I'm very proud of the fact that our our team, exhibit development team, the Tech Interactive, does exhibits well.
One question from Michelle, another Michelle in our comments. How are exhibits retired, like the earthquake shake area? And how do you brainstorm topics for new exhibits?
You know, I can speak to the retirement part is a little bit complicated because one thing that I think about is what's next. And like the earthquake platform is one of our beloved exhibits, but we need to modernize it a little bit. And
it's built into the building. I think a lot of people don't realize that. So it's been there for 30 years, like more than 30 years now.
Right.
Since it's been open.
Exactly. And, you know, it's hard to maintain that. And, you know, so we are trying to be relevant to our community, and earthquakes are relevant. So that's why we have to address that topic soon. Like, how are we going to make that content, you know, once we move earthquake out and modernize it, where it's going to go, it has to come back. So we have to think about that. And then the other question is about how do we pick our topics. We do a lot of testing. Like for and we as a team, we do a lot of reading. We are constantly online looking at what are scientists talking about, what are people interested in, what is the cutting edge science going on right now, that, you know, that pops questions into our minds. You know, how can we incorporate design challenge learning into this topic? So we do a lot of topic testing. We do topic testing internally. We do topic testing, most importantly, with our community. That's a part of prototyping.
Another question from Nick is, what specific parts of the exhibition do you allocate the majority of your budget?
Yeah, that's interesting because for Solve for Earth, we allocated a lot to those bigger exhibits that we have to worry a lot about kind of throughput as well. Like, you know, if you build a small exhibits, only a few people can enjoy it. So we have to be cognizant that we want to get as many people to look at that content as possible. And so we build exhibits that handle a lot of people, and that takes a lot of prototyping time. It takes a lot of building time. Occasionally, when we need software development help, we have to go out and get, hire contractors to do that. One of the exhibit designs that I showed off in the slide deck is called a connections wall. And for that, we had to build this enormous wall. So that takes a lot of money, resources. We have to buy projectors. We have to make sure that those things are reliable. So that for some of those big exhibits, we have to allocate quite a lot of money too. But we also allocate money to the things that are important to the exhibit, right? That are like, if it wasn't in the exhibit, people would notice, right? That we want to tell a complete story with our exhibition. And so we allocate those to the pieces that do that the best.
We've got a question now from one of our young innovators who's watching. Hi, Lola. And she wants to know if there are any new games for kids that are coming after, I think might be asking after we reopen after the pandemic. But I would guess a lot of our audience is curious to know, what are we doing virtually while we're closed during this health crisis? And what are some things we can look forward to that you are adapting maybe in Solve for Earth digitally?
Right, exactly. So that's a great question. So I can answer that on the online portion. So because of the pandemic, we had to accelerate development of the online version of Solve for Earth. So we have Solve for Earth is about 5,000 square feet for us, the physical part of it. And when the pandemic hit, we had actually pretty much designed all of the exhibits that are going to be part of that. But because of this, we have to react to where people are right now. And so we're accelerating our online version. And we're going to be doing that in a couple of different ways. So we should be launching a version of Solve for Earth online this fall. And there's going to be a really cool digital game on that, that we're going to show off on that first version, where my shameful episode of designing, like getting people to make their meals. One of our content exhibit developers came up with a much better idea, and it made it fully digital and much easier and much more fun to use. And to get a lot out of. So that's going to be a version of a game that I think that Lola could enjoy, because you're putting together your meal, but you're doing this in a digital way, and it's a lot of fun. Awesome. Physically, we do have a couple of games in Solve for Earth. One of them touches on biodiversity and like all of the things that, like, did you know that cone snails, the venom that they secrete can help with, reducing pain of cancer. So like we're playing like a biodiversity matching game. So that's a game that's going to be opening in the physical version. And then we have a whole book story bags version. So a lot of our exhibits have gamification incorporated into them. And actually, as part of the research and prototyping phase, we as a team play a lot of games, believe it or not, just to understand how, because games impart information really quickly. So understanding those mechanisms is really important.
I will say it is really fun. You get to play a lot at work, no matter what team you're on at the Tech Interactive, because your team especially and our learning team, they always need guinea pigs, and they always need people that will just play games to test it out and make sure it makes sense before we ask our members to try it and then open it up to the entire community.
Yeah.
So
that's my favorite thing, is that I think just before we went into pandemic sheltering in place, I do believe that I dragged you pretty much physically out of your desk, right? Didn't you play our Balance of Power prototype? I know I dragged a bunch of people to play that.
I know I got to test the meal prep one you're talking about on a big touch screen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you've played.
But no, you often corral us when we're all together to come over to your desk. And even even now, there's actually a question in Slack a little bit about how we might be changing, you know, how we think about ourselves as hands-on and how you might need to design differently for that reason. But I think it's also interesting right now in our health crisis times of COVID, how we collaborate even over our communication channels and what we're doing to make sure we're still providing really cool, fun STEM learning. And to the folks, I know there are a couple questions and we're about out of time in the chat that are asking about what we're doing to engage the community. Definitely check out at the very top of the chat, the Tech Interactive at Home. We've turned a lot of our activities into things that you can do with your family, with things you'll find around the home, cardboard and rubber bands and, you know, fun things.
I think the scavenger hunt is a really fun one.
Oh yeah, talk about that one.
I didn't develop a scavenger hunt. Maybe, was it someone on your team that developed scavenger?
I think it was a learning team, media and community combo for sure.
It was a combo, but I think that one is great. That one.
Yeah, so it's a materials treasure hunt. Yeah, and it just showed like, it's also a fun way if you're a parent to burn off some energy for kids where they just run around the house trying to find different things that could make, you know, building something, you know, what's a sticky material, we'll give something kind of structure, and in a fun way for sure.
That one's a lot of fun, but to answer that question a little bit more, kind of looking into the future, we are right now working on like, what are those ideas that we want to do on Solve for Earth? You know, writing down like all of the topics that we want to explore further online. I think I had a couple of meetings regarding that in the past week, but yeah, keep checking out our website because we do add things on a pretty regular basis for people to try. And we also put out calls for people to prototype with us, right?
Mm-hmm. And we give early access to members. So if you're a member, yeah.
And so, and you know, we have to continue with our, you know, our charge of like, you know, inspiring the innovator in everyone and for developing problem solvers. So we're always looking for people to test things out for us. Yeah, so you know, stay tuned to our website because we're going to be constantly adding more stuff in the upcoming future.
Okay, one final question, and I'm throwing this completely randomly, and we haven't discussed this at you. What is your dream exhibition topic? Like, if you had unlimited budget, as many team members as you needed, like, what would be the one thing that you would love to create, or topic you'd love to create an exhibition around?
I kind of feel that you're trying to get me in trouble here, Mary.
I mean, if you were to say climate change, that would be cool. But no, I'd love to hear. No, genuinely, you're such a passionate, curious, and creative person. I'd love to hear what topic. And I know you probably have 5 in mind because that's the kind of.
I'll mention the first one that I'm super, super interested in. And that is artificial intelligence. I just think that, you know, the idea of using artificial intelligence as a tool to help us solve some of the biggest, most profound problems that are affecting us now, I mean, that is an open field. And, you know, I know that there are people that are working on that. I want to get into those people's minds a little bit to think about, you know, what is it that they feel that they must communicate, right? I'm also, I want to dispel, like, I like the idea of using exhibitions to dispel fear. Like we did that with cyber detectives. Like, here are the tools that people use to keep safe online. These are just the tools, nothing to be, you know, you take charge of your destiny. Don't be afraid, right?
Yeah.
I like the idea of using exhibitions to dispel fear. And so I think that there might be a lot of concern around and fear around artificial intelligence because we
have all seen all the Terminators. So.
Exactly. And so, you know, there is that aspect to artificial intelligence. And you know, the idea of the singularity where machines will finally become as intelligent as humans. I don't know if I'm looking forward to that, but but I do like, I want to figure out like, how will artificial intelligence change how we work in the future? I want to think about like how artificial intelligence could make problem solving faster. So that is something that has been on my mind for a long time. And I am on my own, like starting to think about that and read up on that a little bit. I've met some interesting people who work in that field as well. So
Yeah,
that's number one
as
on
you said that, I think I was thinking about it today, how many devices we have, like the Internet of Things in itself leading into artificial intelligence, and what all the devices we have are like soaking up the information about you, which makes life, as a new mom, it's made my life, a lot of these things, so much easier to just be able to say, hey, whatever device, play this nursery rhyme right now.
Yeah.
But thinking about, yeah, singularity, and I would love to see you make that exhibit, because I just think you do such an excellent job breaking down really complicated topics into ways you can play and have fun and learn at the same time. So hopefully there's someone watching who wants to throw all the money at you to make that exhibit possible.
Yes, that would be great. That would be wonderful. And give me the space to do it too. Yes. I want space, and I want to take over the outside. And don't tell the city, but I'd love to take over Cesar Chavez Park too.
Like, got it. You got it. I'm gonna make some calls.
That would be great.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching. Michelle, your passion just really comes through on everything you talk about, and I really appreciate you sharing with us your insight and always coming to us with these projects, these exhibitions, authentically yourself. And it's so nice to chat with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I love talking to you, America. You're the best.
Thank you.
I love it. Thank you.
Of course. So the tech is doing a really cool thing with Zanato's Family Markets right now, offering a membership to an essential worker with every membership purchase. So please tell your friends if you've enjoyed your membership, and ask them to support us by buying a membership, and in turn also supporting an essential worker. We also have more virtual events coming up. Our next members only event is a talk with Stanford University. We have a program, Stanford Genetics works with the Tech Interactive. You've seen them on our floor probably with many of our DNA, see your DNA experiments. But one of them, the next exhibition or the next member event is August 26th. Dr. Abby Thompson will be there as well. It's actually a panel with several Stanford graduate students who can talk to you about biology and also just what it's like to go to school, get your PhD in biology and the sciences. So if you've got students and teens that you want to gear that direction, please make sure to share that event with them. We also have a really cool thing going on in August this month. Think Outside the Bag, Solving the Plastic Problem. It's a series of 3 events on Thursdays. They're aimed at teens to explore solutions to the overuse of plastics. The first one is Thursday the 13th. You can go to the website you see here, thetech.org/plastic events for more information. And I think that's all we have for you. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching. We really appreciate your support, and we hope you have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.